the editorial team really shapes the vision of a journal. And, excluding women from these visible roles really just deprives the field of cardiology of women's expertise and their perspective. And, there's also maybe subtle biases, implicit biases in publishing, the work of women authors. And so having the editorial team be representative women to help encourage more women as peer reviewers and commentators, and to encourage women publishing, because this really can affect women in academia. Whether they're able to publish or not really affects their future grant funding, their compensation and promotion. So it's really important to be inclusive, and it's up to journals to really, lead the pace here. I think it's the responsibility of journals to address unequal opportunities in academic publishing. So I'm really proud that there has been changes, and I congratulate US Cardiology Reviews for adding a number of women such as myself and Danielle to your editorial board.
Welcome to Parallax by Ankur Kalra, a podcast produced by Radcliffe Cardiology to bring you a new angle of all things cardiology and the best from the US Cardiology Review. Published every second Monday, Ankur Kalra, MD, interventional cardiologist at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio, USA, speaks with legendary cardiologists, reviews late-breaking trials, and interviews authors of our latest and best US Cardiology Review articles. We call them #audio articles. Parallax is the effect whereby the position or direction of an object appears to differ when viewed from different positions. So this podcast is your fix of reliable updates on all things cardiology by someone from a non-traditional background who is always looking at the industry from a new angle. Now, here's your host, Ankur Kalra, MD.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Parallax. I can't believe it's getting to an end of what has been a monumental 2020 for various reasons for all of us. Quite poignant and profound. I sort of say that and bring this up because, I think for me as an editor-in-chief of one of the journals which is up and coming, US Cardiology Review, with Radcliffe Group in the UK, what we've just been managed to do is I'm going to introduce my guests in a little bit, but, they can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think it's quite the feat, as far as I'm concerned, in getting the percentage of women in cardiology involved in our editorial board. So for me, that's it's a profound moment. It's sort of poignant that it's taken us that long to have that many women under the same umbrella, advancing science. So keep that in the background as we sort of talk about this topic and move forward in the podcast. My guests tonight are actually, I call them my friends. Funny enough, in the age of social media and podcasting and Twitter and Instagram, what have you, that we actually haven't. I don't think I've met either of them in person. But it just seems like that I know them both so well, and I hope that the vice versa is also true. So my guests tonight are Erin, Michos. Dr. Michos is the director of Women's Cardiovascular Health at Johns Hopkins. She's associate professor of medicine at Johns Hopkins University. And then my second guest is Dr. Danielle Belardo. And Dr. Belardo is a non-invasive preventive cardiologist at Newport Beach in California. And she's recently graduated to becoming an attending physician after having a very successful stint as a cardiology fellow, and really being the beacon for vegetarianism and cardiovascular medicine. So without much further ado, Erin, Danielle, welcome, and thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you for having us. It's quite an honor to be on this podcast, and I'm just really thrilled to be joining the editorial board of US Cardiology Reviews under your leadership as editor-in-chief.
And thank you so much. I echo those sentiments from Dr. Michos. I'm so excited and honored and beyond thrilled to partake in both the podcast tonight and also to be a part of this incredible journal and to learn from all of you. You have both you have both accomplished so much in cardiology, and I'm just so honored to be able to learn from you through your research and also through everything you're doing with US Cardiology Review.
Well, Erin and Danielle, thank you both. The honor, quite frankly, is ours too. You've both, so both for the audience, both Doctors Michos and Belardo have been beacons of, really voicing the importance of having diversity, inclusion, and representation of women at large, in cardiovascular medicine. And what I just said at the beginning of the podcast is very relevant. And I think they both have been leaders in representing, sort of I think it's fair to call it frustration, right? Erin and Danielle, would you believe that? I think that's the right word to use here, because for so long it's just been, the volcano has not been allowed to let up, and now it eventually has let up. So we're seeing the consequences, and I think it's good. I think shaking it up every now and then is very healthy. So with that, Erin, I'm going to start with you. What do you think is the current state of the journal editorial boards, journals at large, but certainly cardiology journals, but journals at large? I mean, you're extensively published and have an extremely well-rounded resume. So I'm going to start with you with that question.
Oh, well, this is a topic I feel very passionately about because, we've had a real problem. I mean, for more than 20 years, there's been notable gender disparities on many medical journal editorial boards across all specialties, particularly at the highest levels, such as editor-in-chief. There was a 2011 survey of 60 major medical journals, and only 16% of editor-in-chiefs and 18% of editorial board members were women. And in cardiology specifically, I don't know if you saw, there was a paper published in Circulation this year in February 2020. The senior author was Dr. Prachi Agarwal of Michigan. And they examined women editorial representation of major cardiology journals from 1998 to 2018, so 20 years. And again, showed marked disparity. I mean, notably, they found for general cardiology journals for these 20 years, there was no women editors-in-chief in U.S. publications, only one in Europe. At the subspecialty cardiology journals at the time, again, this was through 2018, only Circulation Heart Failure had a female editor-in-chief. Looking at associate editors in U.S. journals, it was 21% women and only 9% associate editors in European journals. So really underrepresented. Over the 20 years, there was an improvement. I mean, the women on editorial boards doubled from 6% to 12%. But certainly we all can agree that was grossly underrepresented. Since that time, JACC journals did add 2 women editors-in-chief for JACC case reports and JACC cardiology oncology. So that's an improvement. But the reason why this matters, is the editorial team really shapes the vision of a journal. And, excluding women from these visible roles really deprives the field of cardiology of women's expertise and their perspective. And, there's also maybe subtle biases, implicit biases in publishing, the work of women authors. And so having the editorial team be representative women to help encourage more women as peer reviewers and commentators, and to encourage women publishing, because this really can affect women in academia. Whether they're able to publish or not really affects their future grant funding, their compensation and promotion. So it's really important to be inclusive, and it's up to journals to really, lead the pace here. I think it's the responsibility of journals to address unequal opportunities in academic publishing. So I'm really proud that there has been changes, and I congratulate US Cardiology Reviews for adding a number of women, such as myself and Danielle, to your editorial board.
As I said, the honor is quite frankly ours, and we sort of wanted to, lead in the space and also send a message across that we really value, yours opinions, and And, for me, I just feel sad that it's taken that long for the field at large, to sort of bring that question to the fore. So, Danielle, let me ask you this, and you have an extensive, presence on social media, and you've lended your voice for the right reason. Particularly, I've been following your posts on Instagram for COVID-19, and they've been they're very educational for me. You've sort of been at the cutting edge of research and evidence base for COVID-19 and also Black Lives Matter. And, the one post that has stuck with me is I vividly remember how you commented on losing, X number of followers just because you voiced your concern for Black Lives Matter and that you are for diversity in color and equal opportunity for people of different color, so that was profound for me. So what I wanted to ask you was, do you think that has translated into representation in cardiology?
So thank you so much. That's a great question. I think that one of the best things for with being a female in cardiology and actually getting exposure to other physicians, I think for me has been social media. So the fact that people like Dr. Michos, Dr. Mihailidou, Dr. Martha Gulati, the fact that all of these female cardiologists, I can follow Dr. Michos' work. I can follow all of them succeeding, publishing all these papers, doing all this incredible work. It really makes you feel like anything is possible. And I think that, no matter where you train, even if I think the last survey showed that 20% of trainees in cardiology were female, that's still not a lot. And so depending on your institution, you may be the only female in your class, or, just there may be one other female. And social media helps to make it feel like a smaller world. And I think that that's where it's really helped to increase this feeling of diversity and inclusion. And especially with, I've spoken a lot about Black Lives Matter and everything like that. And my Instagram following's quite large. And one thing I've always suggested to everyone I follow is diversify who you follow on social media, meaning you should be following more women. You should be following more individuals that are Black, that are Latino, that are of various different racial, ethnic, genders, and backgrounds, because if you're not seeing them in the office every day, I think at least learning from their experiences, especially learning from women in healthcare. And I think that a lot of social media has helped to narrow that with regards to making it feel like a more tight, close-knit group, and has really, I think for my generation of women that just finished training or that are in training, I very much relate to fellows since it just finished training. I think seeing and learning from these female leaders in cardiology like Dr. Michos has been so inspirational. I can't even put a value on it because it's just been invaluable, because it really does make women in cardiology feel like, wow, I can do anything. I can go into academics, or I can go into private practice, or I can be impactful in whichever way I want. So it's been really powerful in that way, I think, for women in medicine.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. I have learned tremendously, following you, and obviously Erin and I have worked together closely recently on several manuscripts, and I've just valued the collaboration with Erin, on a plethora of topics, right from dual antiplatelet therapy to the Kardashian index. It's been quite the spectrum for us, or for that matter, the spiritual piece we wrote with Kavita on COVID-19 and the healthcare workers, which was published in the European Heart Journal, in which we basically took lessons from the Bhagavad Gita and sort of shared it with, it was an allegory, and we were trying to, draw comparisons as to how this is a righteous war for physicians and for the frontline workers, irrespective of what the results are going to be.
It's probably one of my favorites that we did together.
Yeah, mine too. And I don't think if you know about this, Danielle, but it actually was a viral, quote unquote, a viral hit in India. Our inboxes were flooded. Between Kavita, myself, and Erin, our inboxes were flooded with people who we just didn't know from all over India.
It's amazing.
And it was like, whoa, that's, we wrote it because we felt so strongly about it. And, I think the fact that it resonated spiritually with that many people was very humbling for us, and it was very flattering for us. So with that, actually, Erin, speaking of the Bhagavad Gita actually, the one of the prime lessons of the Bhagavad Gita is, aligning thoughts with words and actions. Meaning, so if you're saying what you're thinking, and then if you're doing what you're saying, right? I'm going to repeat that. If you're saying what you're thinking, and then if you're doing what you're saying, you will be in complete harmony and peace with yourself. So that is an extremely profound statement, and it's something that I try to live by every single day. Also because I've been examining the Gita for almost 2 years on a daily basis now. So what do you, and the reason I bring this up is I see a lot of talk, like I see a lot of talk around women in cardiology, right? And I do not know, because I even though I'm completely supportive of women in cardiology as a concept, I'm not the recipient, and I should not be. I must not be the recipient of the benefits that this talk may have generated. I do not know, but I can find that out because I have the two of you here. So gonna start with you, Erin. Talk a bit about your career trajectory, and sort of how we can utilize your distinct interests and have US Cardiology Review be the springboard of where you want to see publishing go, editorial boards go, cardiology go, and women representation go.
Oh, great. Well, as you mentioned in the introduction, I'm the Director of Women's Cardiovascular Health here at my institution at Johns Hopkins. And so I definitely want to make sure that, we're publishing content in this journal that's viewed through a sex and gender lens. And I hope that if I do get to shape an issue of my own, I would want to make sure that, it's an issue filled with increasing awareness of sex and gender differences in cardiovascular disease, because women are not smaller men. And so it's important that everything we publish considers sex and gender. And that's important too. There has been analyses that have linked between the number of the author's gender and whether the studies report gender and sex specific analyses. So there's definitely a link in that. So that's how I hope to shape the journal. And, in terms of, my own career, I'm at the associate professor level. I'm in a mid-career for quite a long time, and there was a wonderful article in the Journal of Women's Health in February earlier this year entitled, "Is Academic Medicine Making the Mid-Career Women Physicians Invisible?" That kind of really resonated with me. And, one of the things that can help really, there are many barriers to limit the advancement of women, but one of these things is having leadership roles, such as things on editorial boards, and making sure, that women, can be helping women be the lead authors of publications and be equitably included on editorial boards. Because I think that we want to make sure that women are reaching their full potential in their professional careers. I hope to achieve my full potential someday, but also encourage the people coming up in the ranks behind me, because women often move more slowly up at academic positions and not reach the highest levels, such as professorship. And so I'm working towards that goal myself. But women don't reach their full career potential. And I think that, roles like this, being in publishing and academic leadership, can help with that, both for my own career and for the people coming up behind me.
Excellent. Danielle?
I have to say, it's unbelievable how much, Dr. Michos, it's unbelievable how much you paved the way for women in cardiology coming after you. I can't not say that enough. It's unbelievable how much you've paved the way. Like, we are so fortunate to have people, like everyone you have selected for your editorial board.
Do you both think that this talk has translated into any measurable action on the ground? Erin?
Well, I do think that we've made a lot of progress. We still have a lot of work to do, and I certainly have suggestions of how we can further improve things, through the role of being on an editorial board. This is why it's so, important to be in a position of leadership where you can impact change. I think it's really important, speaking of editorial teams, that people reviewing work such as editors, editorial boards, and reviewers are diverse. And by diversity, I'm not just talking about including women. And I also want to mention, of course, that gender is not binary. And so it's really important throughout academia that we represent, everybody, including people, especially people at risk for underrepresentation, our LGBT colleagues, our colleagues of racial ethnic minority. We also want to make sure that early career and trainees have a voice too, and that it's not being drowned out just by the most senior investigators. So all those voices matter. Diversity leads to innovation and better science. So, what can we do? I think we can move the needle. We see this in lots of journals. Lancet made the pledge to have 50% of their editorial team be women. Other journals have followed suit. And so I think that if we set these benchmarks, so I think that we should encourage editorial teams to be 50% women, particularly in leadership roles. And then we should make sure that peer reviewers are 50% women, and to help avoid implicit biases in terms of what gets selected to be published. And we should encourage women to write editorials and commentaries. There was a study looking at commentaries, editorials in major cardiology journals, and women were 22% less likely to publish an editorial compared to male colleagues. So, we need to invite women, because this is certainly a way of showing that they're a leader in the field, that their voice matters. Again, we should encourage work that's being submitted from not just women, but persons of color, people from lower middle income countries to publish, individuals from all stages of their career, and making sure author teams are diverse. And then one of the things, I hope if I have a role in an editorial team, is I really am a big fan of doing double-blinded reviews. Very few journals do this, but I think it's really important. It's really easy to strip off authors' names before sending it to a review, so both that the reviewers are blinded to the authors' names and the authors are blinded to the reviewers. People say like, oh, well, the reviewers will guess who the authors are, but that's fine. Let them guess. I think it shouldn't be so obvious. And I also think there's a bias to publishing big name authors in the field, who often tend to be men too. Reviewers might assume that this must be a really good paper because it's from Dr. So-and-so, big name person. But each paper, each work needs to be judged on its own scientific merit. And I think that can be facilitated by doing double-blinded review. So you asked me, what would be my action items? How do we, translate align words into actions? And so from an editorial standpoint, that's what I would recommend putting forth.
Yeah, excellent. I think double-blinded reviews is something that we've talked about, before obviously getting you on board, and we're going to have our editorial board meeting with all of you soon. But we've in the past we've talked about having double-blinded reviews, and I agree with you. It's like akin, and when we had this conversation before. The analogy that I gave was it's like akin to having a multi-starrer movie, right? If the storyline is trash, no matter how many stars you put in the movie, it's going to be trash. So meaning just focus on the storyline. So focus on the analogy is to focus on the scientific content rather than the author list. So now back to you, Danielle. Same question. What thoughts do you have around actionable items, and how do you plan to engage and be mentored, obviously with women like Dr. Michos and Dr. Gulati, but also how do you plan to engage? How do you plan to use your position as one of the editorial board members in a peer-reviewed journal, hopefully would be PubMed indexed soon, which I think is going to be a major step for us. How would you then use that platform to engage more women to join the field of cardiovascular medicine and to be more active, scientifically or academically?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And I just want to touch back on what Dr. Michos said. I love that she mentioned, really that we all become better when we have a more diverse environment. Like she mentioned, gender is not binary, and how if we include our LGBTQ and trans community, if we include our all of our the community, everyone in medicine that is, of all different races, ethnicities, it really does make us better doctors. And I just think that's such an important point that throughout my training, I've learned with the more diverse of physicians I've worked with and learned from different cultural backgrounds, different religions, the more I feel like I've become a well-rounded physician and been able to talk to patients of various backgrounds. I think it's just so important. So I do really appreciate that. Well, with regards to one of my biggest passions is actually scientific communication with the public, because I love Twitter more than anything on earth. I love learning from you all, from both of you, from the cardiology community as a whole. But when you think about scientific communication to the general public, really everyone in my generation, younger, they're really on Facebook and Instagram, and they're not discussing p-values and things like this. And you think of how much misinformation is out there. And if you follow me on social media, especially on Instagram, I just talk about scientific misinformation, how harmful it is. It's just so common. I think one of the biggest things is helping to explain, also just bridge that gap to, everyone's consuming information now through social media. Everyone of my generation and younger, they really are just using social media to consume all of these, whether it's just kind of like a news headline or whether it's actual scientific information. I would love for our generation to really just get more engaged in accurate scientific communication, and really just for individuals to learn how to just even understand how to read studies, what is peer review, to understand levels of evidence and things that are important. Because the amount of scientific misinformation that is out there is dangerous. And that's what's led to more vaccine hesitancy and has led to a lot of nutrition misinformation, which I care very much about. And so I think in general, just kind of bridging the gap between, physicians that are doing a lot of the research to just kind of the general public is a passion of mine, because there's so much amazing and important work being done, but I don't know if it always reaches, everyone who's just scrolling every day. And so I think that's an important key.
Yeah, and kudos to you. I mean, I've this is coming from a really honest place in my heart, right? And I'm sure you've had your share. You've had your share of trolls on Twitter.
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
or Instagram, and we can talk about that. It's quite frankly, it's not even relevant. But what I was saying was, what's coming from a very honest place in my heart is and I really want to genuinely compliment you on how thorough you have been and how up to date you have been in sharing relevant information, which has been extremely educational, and not only for, of course, I mean, for the general public. I can't. It'll be hard for me to believe that it has not been educational for them, but even for someone who's in the thick of medicine, like at the core of medicine, if you will, on a daily basis, and reads through peer-reviewed literature and generates peer-reviewed literature, and wants to contribute to knowledge. Even for me, has been extremely educational. So, and it's not hard to see the amount of effort you put into generating those posts, and it's time consuming, it's informative, and it also anyone who reads science and who reads peer-reviewed literature and reviews it can tell that the person has done the homework. So, I wanted to congratulate you on that effort. It takes a massive amount of effort to do that on a daily basis.
Yes, I want to congratulate her too. I mean, she's amazing in terms of being able to connect with the public and all sorts of stakeholders, other researchers, other clinicians, other physicians, policymakers, and the general public and patients, and just has a way of connecting to a lot of people. And she says she learns a lot from me, but this feeling is mutual, and this is I learn a lot from her. And that's the nice thing about social media, is that it is an equalizer of voices and allows everybody to have a voice to be heard. So congratulations, Dan.
Oh, no. It's a great way to learn, especially with regards to being involved in this editorial board. I mean, there's just so much to learn from you, Dr. Michos and Dr. Kalra. There's so much to learn from you both. And I actually have a question for both of you. I don't want to take over, but my question for both of you is, since both of you are so accomplished and you both have done so much with regards to publishing so much, just not just publishing research, but you both have published so much valuable research. I mean, I read everything that you guys publish, and you guys are just fantastic. So I'm a huge fan. What would be your advice for someone new career starting out to get their, to get more involved and things like that? And whether they're a fellow or just someone that's graduated. And what about people who want to get involved in research or in any sort of writing that, is new, relatively new in general, out of training or in training?
Yes, and I think it's so valuable to have mentorship and sponsorship, and people need lots of different types of mentors and sponsors in their whole career. Writing, like everything else, takes practice. The more you do, the better you get at it. So I would encourage everybody to, start writing about a topic that they're passionate about, to, identify a mentors and a projects and get involved. And sometimes, the hardest part is, putting the first sentence on the paper, but this is what, a mentor can help you with in terms of improving writing strategy and writing and publishing, throughout one's career. But I think it's, important to have your research and your writing align with your passion and your career direction. And, the more you write, and the more you get better at it. And so I encourage everybody to get involved. And in terms of early career, trying to find those mentors and sponsors, there's, the professional societies have done a really great job with this. The AHA, their fellows in training, FIT committees, ACC, FIT committees, the American Society of Preventive Cardiology. The world is much smaller and more connected now, particularly through social media. And now we're having all our conferences, by Zoom and digitally. So we're more connected more than ever. And so I think people all over the world should be able to find a mentor. And a lot of my mentees are not even at Hopkins. I mentor a lot of individuals who are at other institutions that weren't able necessarily to find a mentor in their field that they were interested in. So I think mentorship and sponsorship is really important. And this is why we need more women in leadership positions, who can be role models for the next generation.
I completely agree with Erin. To second Erin's comment on mentoring, residents and even medical students, from other institutions who, may not have access to, the kind of mentorship that they're looking forward to. Has been more rewarding for me. I hope it has been rewarding for them, but has been more rewarding for me to allow them access in a very humble way. And I've seen that with Erin too. I mean, both of us are very open to people reaching out to us, and in return, it's given us back a tremendous amount of of joy and happiness. Like papers like Erin and I just did on network meta-analysis and dual antiplatelet therapy, which Dr. Safi Khan pioneered, and then allowed us the opportunity to have multi-institutional authors and sort of have that milieu. So I'm sure, Erin, you would agree, don't you think, Erin?
Oh, it's been tremendously rewarding. I mean, there's talented individuals all over the world, and they just need the right nurturing to advance their careers. And I just want to keep in mind that anyone can be a mentor. So you don't have to be, an associate professor or a full professor. No matter what stage you are at your career, whether you're a fellow or a resident or a medical student, there's always somebody who wants to be where you are at now. And so, peer mentoring, is important for everyone for every stage. So in my research lab, I certainly have the cardiology fellows help mentor the internal medicine residents on writing papers, and the internal medicine residents are mentoring, the medical students, and we have undergrads. And so, you're never too early or young in your career to mentor someone. There's always someone who wants to be where you are now. So it's good to have mentors, but also pay it forward, and mentor someone in return. It's incredibly rewarding.
Amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
I know whenever I get frustrated about my own career not advancing where I want it to be, it helps when you think, beyond your own troubles and think, putting your effort into helping someone else. And that's incredibly rewarding. And it gets you out of your head about, focusing on your own career when you become focused on other people. And so that's what's really, I found the most rewarding in academia is focusing on helping others.
Well, I think that both of you may not even realize how many people you have inspired, even just outside of your direct people you have worked with. Dr. Michos, I know every woman that is in cardiology, every female resident, or every woman that feels like, I don't know if I can go into cardiology, and every woman that gets nervous about it, I tell them to follow you and Dr. Galati and all of the incredibly successful women on cardio Twitter, and I think that they feel inspired. So I think you're actually inspiring people that you don't even know you're inspiring.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that truly is awesome to hear. And so one more thing about mentoring is, I think, also reverse mentoring, right? From the residents and the fellows, particularly the residents, who are probably more facile with some of the social media platforms, maybe I'm not facile with, right? They can mentor me how to be a better communicator on those platforms. And then, I think. Also, the energy of the curious mind and sort of trying to question the status quo is that you get from either a medical student or an intern, just fresh out of medical school, is extremely valuable to me. Some of the research questions actually, quite frankly, and that's why I gravitate toward either medical students or interns, because their ability to ask naive questions is so pure that maybe a lot of my ideas actually come from them, because you tend to get comfortable in certain pathways of thinking, and when you get that fresh that fresh air of just naive, the ability to ask a naive question, I think as a researcher is the purest ability you can gravitate toward, in my opinion. And that is my relentless resource of okay, I got why am I not coming up with better ideas? Okay, let me go and hang around medical students a little bit, or let me go and hang around interns a little bit, and I'm sure I'm going to find something which they've looked at or they've thought about, which I've never thought about in that fashion. And that's the other reason why I really like to sort of mentor people who are, that naive and that young in their careers. So, that part is also very rewarding.
And their energy and their passion, I mean, it just, it keeps me going. I think people can, when you're in your career a long time, you can start getting a little disillusioned and bored, and seeing that the passion of the next generation coming up, it keeps me thriving and engaged. And it makes me want to do better, be a better physician, a better mentor, a better research. I want to do right by them. And I mean, we've gone to so many, scientific meetings over our careers once we get to this stage. But there's nothing like the excitement of, I have a medical student, who presenting the first time at the American Heart Association meeting, and the excitement of their first meeting or their first abstract. And so, those who follow me on Twitter know that I do cartwheels in enthusiasm for my mentees, because it's really big milestones for them, and it helps me remember the passion and the drive and what got me here where I am, and I want to have them experience that joy of scientific investigation.
So moving on to the next question here. Danielle, I'm going to ask this question to you first. What was your reaction and emotion to receive an invite to be on the editorial board for US Cardiology Review?
I'm so honored. I'm beyond honored. Especially for me, this is a huge learning opportunity. I want to contribute in any which way possible. But for me, it is such an honor to be able to learn from all of you. Such an honor. Like, I just finished fellowship, and to be able to learn from you all, I'm like a sponge, and I'm really in a stage where I can't learn enough. Like, I just am so thrilled and just so honored to learn from every single person on the editorial board, and to contribute in every way possible. And I can't thank you enough for including me, because I do think that it's one of those things where I constantly want to learn from everyone, but once fellowship is over, you almost begin to feel like, oh no, I have to keep my learning through other ways, and it's no longer a formal education or training, and I find that this is going to be a fantastic way for me to learn from some of the best cardiologists in the world. So I can't thank you enough for letting me be involved in any way possible.
No, it's our pleasure. I think it's we are equally enthusiastic and enthused that you accepted the invitation, because you bring tremendous energy you will bring tremendous. Having followed you through the years, you're going to bring tremendous energy and engagement. From more women to the editorial board. And Erin, maybe you were like, okay, I have another invite for an editorial board, but I truly want to know, what was your reaction once you received that invite?
Oh, well, I'm honored to be included. I mean, it's so welcoming to be, recognized as a leader in your field, to get invited. And I see this as my way of giving back, because I feel so strongly about the importance of having diversity in publishing, in voices and thoughts. And so this is a way for me to put my own footprint into the direction the journal is going. Editors play a key role in the direction of the journals, and I want to be a force for good and for advancement. And we're going to need that if the whole field as a whole is going to change. And representation matters. It matters a lot. It matters everywhere. It matters on editorial boards. It matters in leadership positions. It matters in conferences and grand round invitations and awards, honors, the portraits that are displayed in institutional halls. I know you did a podcast on that too. So it's important to be have representation, and hopefully this will inspire the next generation to create a robust pipeline of future women editors. And I'm glad that you've invited Dr. Belardo, Danielle. I think it's important to engage women faculty at early stages of their career. Not just inviting senior people to be on editorial boards. So it was an honor, and I hope that I can make an impact for the journal.
Yeah, no, I don't think I have any doubt that you will make an impact. So the formula for us, because there were amazing candidates, and the formula for us was, so first of all, as an editor-in-chief, I really want this to be a democratic representation of. I just don't want this to be like a sentence on your resume, but I truly really want this to be a platform where you can lead topics and uncharted areas in cardiology and medicine, and also just cardiovascular medicine and society and policy. So I really want the core women in cardiology group to be leading this effort for us. And we're gonna talk more about this at our first editorial board meeting. But the concept is to pair women in cardiology, pair them and have them lead an issue and sort of go in a cyclical fashion, so that you truly become the face of US Cardiology Review. And it does not. It's very democratic, and everybody gets an equal opportunity to sort of lead and shine and sort of carve out that specific issue, which also sort of represents who they are as people. So that part to me is the most exciting part. Quite frankly, of having your representation and having the ability to pair. For example, someone like Danielle with someone like you, Erin. And so our formula was, have 1/3 early career, have 1/3 somewhere in the mid career, and then have 1/3 as seniors who could then mentor the early career and sort of the mid-career can then be in a position to have an issue of their own. So we'll see how this pans out. Obviously this looked incredibly lucrative on paper. It still does when I talk about it. But I've no doubt that with the energy that you both bring, to us is going to be of tremendous value to us. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, putting out good quality content that gets cited. I have no doubt it'll be indexed on PubMed soon, and so I'm thrilled to help contribute.
Yeah, and I'm just so thankful, especially that I'm just so honored to be included. But I'm also just so thankful that you've really focused on representing and bringing in women in cardiology specifically. I think people sometimes forget that 50% of our patients are female, and so to have women in cardiology represented is so important because that's what that's half of our patient population, and so it's incredibly important to bring that voice in. And I just give you guys so much credit for really diversifying your editorial board, and I'm so honored to be included and learn from everyone involved. So thank you.
Well, this has been a great discussion. So I'm going to come to my last question, and that's sort of to conclude the episode. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with both of you, Erin and Danielle, and thank you for making the time that late in the evening. I know on the East Coast is getting close to be 9:30. So the synergy, right? The synergy on this podcast between you and Erin is exactly the reason why we wanted to have that kind of room to pair someone like Danielle with someone like Erin, because
Yeah, but you're part of the equation. This is what's so important, that men are part of the change, that they're allies and sponsors, because feminism is for everyone. This isn't just a woman's issue. This is an everyone's issue to make sure that medicine and science is the best possible, and only that is through diversity. And we can't just keep fixing the women and having this be a women's problem. We need men to be allies and part of the change for good. And you are the change for good. And I've been so grateful for your collaboration, Ankur, and for this invitation to be part of this journal and this podcast tonight.
Yeah. So thanks again. I know it's been a long evening, for both of you, and so thank you so much for your time. I have truly enjoyed this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you both so much, and thank you again for including me, and thank you for everything you both have done. You both are incredibly inspiring, and thank you for helping to make cardiology a more inclusive place for everyone. Thank you both.
Dear cardiologists, we want to make this podcast about you and for you. So please email us your critical thoughts, comments and questions at podcast@radcliffe-group.com and visit uscjournal.com for more information. You can also follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram at Radcliffe Cardiology for daily updates. Join thousands of cardiologists and become a Radcliffean by registering to radcliffecardiology.com. You will receive regular newsletters and gain access to hundreds of expert interviews, educational webinars, clinical cases, and peer-reviewed articles from our 6 medical review journals on general cardiology, interventional cardiology, arrhythmia and electrophysiology, cardiac failure, and vascular and endovascular surgery. Thank you.